they stand or not,
Yes.
and see if we have an election. So we're accepting nominations from the floor. Anybody?
I nominate Greg Booth.
I'll second that.
And I would like to nominate Liam Craig. He's got a much nicer voice than me.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline that nomination.
Going once. Going twice, yeah. It's like, okay. 3 times. Okay, I'll stand since nobody else wants to do it, so I'll do it.
Okay, so we need an official resolution to appoint you as the chair.
So is that somebody makes a motion for that?
Yes, please.
I'll make the motion to appoint Greg Booth as chair of the Grafton Communal Water Committee. For
And
this
I will-
term.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
against? Motion passed. Okay, thank you. Well, not really, thank you, but. Okay. Look, I called the meeting to order when there wasn't supposed to. So, already screwed up and made a mistake. Okay. So I didn't, you actually left a chair outside the meeting. Okay. So let's call this meeting to order now at, what time is it, Pat?
306.
3:06. Is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Anybody? Seeing none. Okay, please note that. The approval of the agenda as circulated, be it resolved that the agenda for the March 15th, 2023 meeting of the Grafton Communal Water System Committee be approved as circulated. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Stover, seconded by Keith. All in favor? Passed. That's 2 mistakes already. So before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Elderville First Nations with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Alnwick-Haldeman is located on the Mississauga, Anash in Anishinaabeg, close enough, territory, and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. The township of Alnwick-Haldeman respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Much better next time. Okay, let's go to the approval of the minutes. The minutes, be it resolved that the minutes of the January 25th, 2023 Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting be approved. Can I have a mover, please?
I will so move that.
Moved by Liam Craig, seconded by Rick Cole. All in favor?
Nope. I have a question.
That'll come from, would it not come from business survival from the minutes, or we can?
Either.
No, I have a couple of corrections to the minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
8, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. 8.3, the water modeling study. It says it was noted that this study would ensure that there is adequate flow to all water users. We already know that the water users that are here have adequate water flow. So the whole purpose of the water model study is for new development to make sure that the township system or the Hamlet Grafton system can handle any new development. But that should be paid for by the developers and not the existing users. I think that needs to be in there because this is very ambiguous.
Sorry, Grit, that was actually taken from someone else's comments during the meeting, and they did not make that comment, so I didn't include it.
Okay. The next one was the water rates. That was me that asked about the water rates. The intent was not to change the water rates, but to change the allocation of the portion of water rates that are for the new well debenture that we no longer need due to provincial and federal funding. The suggestion was that the funds be allocated to capital reserves perhaps, as opposed to debenture, because we're paying for a debenture that we're not going to be using. I just think the money should be properly allocated. It wasn't to change the water rates. We weren't trying to give money back to people.
I agree with Grit's comment on the second point, especially that it's always best to work with our capital reserves when we can, and we're not dealing with a debenture at this time or as large a debenture.
And sorry, Grit, I just wanted to reiterate the water rates section as well. Those were just comments and discussion points that were brought up. Not that any decision was made. It was just a discussion as to what was brought forward.
Okay, but changing rates means something different to me than the allocation of the rates. So I guess it doesn't matter if it's not important, it doesn't matter.
Anything else, Greg?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and all in favor of that motion? Okay, so the approval, now is there business arising from the previous minutes? We jumped the gun, but is there anybody else, any other issues with those minutes? No? Okay, we're gonna move on to number 8 now, financial report. I don't see Nicole here, I know she's off sick. So I wouldn't expect her to be here, but be it resolved that the Grafton Communal Water Committee approve the draft water budget and direct the treasurer to bring back the final water budget for approval at their next meeting with changes to the well project and any other changes as discussed in the March 15th meeting. And further, that the Grafton Communal Water Committee receive and file the draft water budget report. Can I have a mover, please? Mover, Deputy Mayor Stover, seconder.
I'll second it, just so we can get to discussion.
Liam Craig, second. Okay, discussion on the motion.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, last meeting, we had questions that were going to be addressed once the treasurer was available. And seeing as how the treasurer is still not available, there are still questions arising from that report. I feel uncomfortable forwarding this to council when we have questions arising. Sorry, unanswered questions arising.
Okay, noted. Is there anybody else that has questions about the draft water budget?
I have another question.
Sure, go ahead.
How time sensitive is this budget? How time sensitive is our approval of these statements for the budget process?
Oh, sorry,
Chair,
Pat, go
that's
ahead.
okay. Because the water budget is dealt with separately, there isn't an urgency as there was with our regular budget. So if you want to defer to our next meeting, you can do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think we'll have sort of no choice since the treasurer is not here and can't answer this.
Coming on. Hi, Nicole, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Yolanda.
Okay. All right, so I will now let the mic go over to Liam, I guess.
We're just at section 8, Nicole, which is the financial report, and Liam had a couple of questions. Go ahead.
From memory, the questions were to deal with, we had other income showing on the financial statement, but we had no idea what other income is comprised of.
Can't hear you, Nicole. Muted.
Okay, there we go. So when you're talking about other income, are you talking about 2022 or are you talking about the budget that I submitted?
Talking about 2022.
Oh. Just pull that up.
And 2023 budget.
I've been having problems accessing our network, so I've had to email a bunch of documents to myself. And then
Would you like the line number?
that's not gonna, unless I can get back on the network. Just give me a moment. Wasn't expecting to be on the hot seat as soon as I got on here. Just give me a second.
Welcome back.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull Keystone up and then actually, and if you do give me the GL account, just give me a moment, I can get the detail. And you're looking at 2022. I know I did look at this prior to this, but okay, so if you can give me the account number, I'll put it in and see what comes up here.
Last 5 numbers are 423
I need all the digits, please.
10-0800-0801-42365.
2, 3, 6, 5. Okay. One zero zero eight zero 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 eight oh one 42365. That's the account that you're talking about?
Yes. Water, other revenue.
My system's not even showing that there's anything in that account, so.
It was budgeted for in 2022, 4,568. Nothing received in 2022 actual, And then twenty
Okay, so
twenty-three,
okay, hold on a second. So you're asking about the budgeted amount. You're not asking about an amount that's actually gone through that account?
we're kind of asking what
Is
Because if
it?
there's
is
zero,
revenue?
if there's zero in that account, like it's coming up as nothing coming into my system. So I'm not, when you're talking about $4,000, are you talking about the budgeted amount or are you talking about the actuals?
Budgeted.
Okay, if you're talking about budget, then that was approved by the water committee and that would have been based on, give me a second here.
I think that's the question you're asking, right, is if we budgeted 4,000, whatever, what is that for?
What's
Is
it
other-
for?
Yeah,
Okay, so I need to go into the budget, not into the financials. Okay.
can you recall, Larry, what it's for? Just off the top of your head or no?
Let me just see if there's any notes here. I have on here that it is per, oh, there's where it came from. Yeah, it's straight out of the water study. So if you look at the 8.1.1 of the water study that was done, and you look at the 2022 column, there was $4,568 on that in that study. And that's where that number has come from. Now I'd have to look into it with a little bit more detail because it's obviously not interest earned. So it's got to be something else. But if you look at the water study, that number gets a little bit bigger every year. So I'd have to look at it with a bit more detail. But that was option one of the financials that were in the water study.
Go ahead, Brooke, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so for 2023, the revenue is budgeted at $4,689 per the 2020 water rate study. I guess we do want to know what that revenue represents, where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to look at it in a little bit more detail. I do have the financial pages in front of me, but I don't have the full water study, so I'll have to look into that back to you. But anytime that I'm working on the budget for water, I would obviously consult with Lucy on any expenditures and then any of the other revenues, whether it be for metered or water customers, anything like that. That's all coming straight from the study until another study is done. So if we have any changes throughout the year, that ends up going through the reserve. So if we end up with a surplus, that goes back into the reserves. If we end up in a deficit, then it would come out of the reserves.
Okay, so you'll get back to us on that one, whether it's today or at our next meeting. Other question, you had another one, Lee?
Another inquiry was with regard to water exempted properties line item showing zero revenue.
Mhm.
And it was asking when the money would be allocated to the account.
So Liam, I'm not even sure what that water exempted properties.
GL account number.
Yeah, no, I know what GL account number you're talking about, Liam, sorry. I can see it. I've got there's never been anything budgeted and there's never been any actuals that have been posted to that account. So I'm not sure what that even entails.
Then could we get an explanation as to what exempted properties are?
Would that come from you, Yolanda? Can we have that? The next meeting? I know we discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the information particularly in front of me, but it is in our bylaw for water connections. And council does have the right to exempt certain properties from paying, I guess, the rate they would normally pay on a monthly basis. Exempted properties are typically charged a yearly rate that they would be charged, but that is in our water connection bylaw.
So then is it possible for the next meeting, you could bring that information, the
Sure.
bylaw? and-
Yep.
and Whatever, maybe discuss it with Liam after to see exactly what you're looking for. I think we've discussed it before. I'm not sure. John, can you recall it?
The only thing I want to say is it sounds like there is an exemption. We know that. And we know that they pay possibly on a yearly rate. We want to know that in better detail. And when does that money come in? Is the question. Like, is there a point when that gets put in as revenue?
And just to add to that, it's not showing in the 2021 budget actual, it's not showing in the 2022 budget or actual, so if it's being paid, where's it going?
It's going, yeah, the question is, it's probably, it must be coming in. And I would hope, and where was it put? If not there, it must have been put somewhere else. Can someone dig into that and get back to us next meeting?
So maybe a two-part, Yolanda, you can come back with the bylaw and the explanation of what exactly it is for the new members. And Nicole, maybe you could further look into for the next meeting. If that, like John said, if that money's coming in, where is it going to, if it's not going to that account, or even if there is anybody exempt, I can't even recall, so.
Exactly. So if Yolanda can give me a copy of that, that bylaw, then what I can then do is check with our tax department to see who's been exempted. And then from there, you know, figure out if there's any funds that have come in. If there has, I would suspect that it's likely been allocated to one of the other water revenue lines, but I will definitely hunt that down.
Okay, thank you. Another one, Neil? Just the two? Yep. Anybody else have any issues? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think with the issues that we have, we might take you up on what you were saying, Pat. Can we defer this to the next meeting then? Until those concerns and questions are answered?
Yep. And I don't think, you might want to ask Nicole if there's any rush, but I don't believe there is.
Is there any rush, Nicole, for this? Are we okay if you guys go back, get the answers and that, and we pass this in May?
Yeah, there'd be no problem. We haven't had our annual audit yet with the auditor, so there's still opportunity for us to make an adjustment if something's been posted to the wrong account. It also gives us the option if, I mean, if you, I guess the only, I'm just thinking about the budget part of things, but there's no impact on the levy. So absolutely, even if we're wanting to change the budget number, once we find out what that other revenue item is, that would still give us the opportunity to change that.
Okay,
So,
so
yes.
I'll recommend that we defer it until the next meeting in May. That way you and Yolanda can get some more information back to us. And if there's any other questions from any of the members, if you want to take it back home, look at it, and then maybe email that question to Yolanda or maybe to Pat and Nicole. So that way we can sort of get ahead of the game. So instead of in the next meeting in May, there's another one or two questions and we have to research it again. If we give them pre-notice to look it up, then we can come up with the answers. Yes, Grit.
Okay, I have gone through this, and so I do have a question. Because the water modeling study was definitely something that was discussed, and there's no provision for it anywhere in the budget. So I thought it was going to be done this coming year. Am I not correct on that? And that raises the question of how it's going to be paid. So I'm just wondering, is this going to be plopped on us down the road, or is it going to be built into the budget?
I'm not sure who can answer that question. Pat,
It would be Nicole.
Nicole?
I guess the question is it being done this year and what's the cost? Because definitely it can be built into the budget, but I just would need the numbers that need to be put in, and I can revise the budget.
Approximately $50,000, I believe. Is that correct? Larry?
Go ahead, Pat.
So,
Pat, you have your hand up?
yes, so it was estimated at $50,000. And Nicole, I thought there was discussion during the budget meeting with Jennifer Current's budget.
Yeah, let me see what I've got in planning.
That would be good.
That's probably something that if we're gonna defer it anyway, we can
bring
let
it
that
back.
go instead of waiting,
Yep.
to.
Sure.
Yeah, so we
look at
didn't.
that. I do know, like you said, Grit, it was a contentious issue of whether we were gonna do it, and then the second part was who's paying for it. So if it's not in there, we'll have to, I got you, Liam, if it's not in.
I don't see it in our
It's not in
planning.
the plan
It
either.
is coming back to me that we had some discussion around that and how it was going to be funded. I remember Jennifer actually asking me about whether that was something that we could fund from reserves. So let me just.
Okay, we'll leave it for now, and then you can look at that, Nicole, too, and then we can find out. And obviously, if we're discussing budget in the May one, that will be one of the things we can discuss is if it's $50,000 and whether this committee is recommending, what the recommendation is that's coming back to council. Liam, you had a question?
Well, in the same vein as the question, who's going to pay for it? It does need to be done. It does have to be paid for, but it can be recovered from future development. So it's almost like you could call it an internal debenture or an internal recovery. Just adding and pulling a figure out of the air, $400 or $500 per lot for any new development.
Yeah. Go ahead, Britt.
Yeah, the concern there, though, Liam, with the discussions we had before and with information that came forward from Larry and how it Sprika, how it's handled in Coburg, is the water modeling study portion that the new developers would pay was $5,000. Well, we only have 3 developments that could potentially go ahead at this point in time. So we would only get 15,000 back out of 50. So who's on the hook for that other 35,000? That's where the real issue lies too. Sure, but we don't have enough development to cover the cost. Even if we had 2 that expanded boundaries, we still would only recover half of it. Unless you triple that amount and make it $15,000 for a development. I don't know.
Or do it on a per lot basis. So if someone comes in and says, I have a development of 10 lots, then you're looking at $4,000 to $5,000. Someone comes in and says, I have 50 lots, then you're looking at 20 to 25,000 as a per lot basis.
Yeah, I just thought I know I didn't see it in planning and I now don't see it in our water budget. So I just thought it was a substantial amount. So we should be making sure it's taken care of for this year.
Okay, so we'll defer that with the other 2 questions there, the May meeting, and then we'll have a good discussion on everybody's viewpoint of who's paying, how we pay. Larry, if you get a chance, maybe if you can read up on exactly how the Coburg, how they get their money back from it or that, in case there's more questions for you, and then we can decide, first of all, if we're doing it, because there has been no motion come forward or anything to say that we are doing it yet. And the second one would be, how are we paying for it? Or how are we getting the money back? Is everybody good for that then?
Yes,
And Nicole, you and Yolanda are okay with that to do some research and get back to us? That gives us more time. Okay, so I'll accept a motion from somebody to defer the budget. Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Liam Craig. Any discussion on it? We're okay, all in favor? Okay, carried, so we'll defer the budget to the May meeting. Okay, moving on to number 9. Report from Bruce Highcamp, Geocamp Limited, re the Grafton Production Well Monitoring Program 2022 Annual Report, permit to take water 5086-9B PM 4A. Be it resolved that the Grafton Production Well Monitoring Program 2022 Annual Report to permit to take water 506-9B PM 4A be received and filed. Can I have a mover, please, so we can get it on the floor?
I will so move.
Liam Craig, seconded by John. Okay, go ahead, Bruce, it's all yours.
Okay, hi, everyone. If you're not aware, there's 2 wells in service that provide water to the community of Grafton. Both wells are about 78 meters deep, located within 100 meters of each other. There's a permit to take water issued for the water taking, and under the permit to take water, there's 2 main conditions. That one is a water level monitoring program, and the other is a water sample collection system. Generally, it's annual water samples and quarterly water level monitoring. For 2022, we took quarterly water quality samples because we had an issue regarding a BTEX detection at one of the wells. We sampled it 4 times last year, and we had non-detect in 3 of the 4, but September had a very low concentration. So it still showed up, but we had favorable results. In 2021, we kept having slight detects of toluene, and this year it's been pretty good, except for 1 low concentration. So I've recommended for 2023 that we just go back to our annual water samples and continue with the water level monitoring. So for the water level monitoring, there hasn't been any triggers. We have elevations set, and that's basically to ensure that the aquifer is not being overtaxed or any other local wells going dry. So the water level monitoring part of it's been okay. In 2020, 2021, we kind of had some issues that kind of came up too. The 3 main issues were the ammonia. Well, the ammonia has been there for a bit, but and we noticed a connection to the landfill because we were gearing up to do some pumping tests. Anyways, we've got a handle on the landfill drawdowns. It's a spring that's coming out there, and it's kind of supporting water in the area. It's not capturing landfill leachate or anything like that. The landfill monitoring is addressed. The ammonia is underway, which we'll probably talk about. We're in the process of replacing the 1 well to get lower ammonia, and I think we've resolved the BTEX in that we know that we sometimes get a low hit, and we're monitoring it and have a program in place for that. There's a new MOE inspector. Larry gave me his contact information. I've reached out and I tried to share the report. I don't know if he got it. That's about it for the groundwater monitoring program. I'm trying to scale it back for this year. But this report for this year, because we're gearing up to do the replacement program, I kind of put everything all I could in the one report, summarized it for the consultant that's coming on board to oversee it. So rather than having to dig back into previous reports, I just kind of put everything and made a thick report for this year. Any questions?
Go ahead, Leah.
Thank you. Bruce,
Yeah.
with the toluene positive tests, at what level does it trigger more intensified tests, or does it become a concern?
So there's two triggers, essentially. So the water level trigger is an elevation, and the second trigger is a water quality. The water quality is based on sodium, BTEX, and I forget a few other parameters. But the BTEX is just a detection of it, like it's not a level. So that one, if the lab improves its detection limit, we skip down to a lower limit. It hasn't been a problem in the last 25 years. It's just kind of flared up and went away too. So those are the limits or the triggers. The program is that we have to advise the ministry right away, prepare an interpretive report. But while we're preparing the report, we have to collect weekly samples. So we were stuck in that program in 2021. We knew there was a problem. We just had to keep collecting samples weekly, which was excessive. But the Ministry of the Environment was on board after I prepared the report, and we reduced it down to quarterly. So we've had 2 years of quarterly samples.
And is the ministry happy now that the levels are low enough?
Well, they seemed happy that we were handling it. They didn't seem too concerned about it. Maybe I take a bit more information. They did sample all the wells in the landfill, and they didn't find any BTEX there. So it's not the landfill. And in fact, I was reading the landfill report, and they want to reduce their monitoring program to I think just every other year, because the landfill's been closed for about 25 years too. So they feel they have nothing much is happening at the landfill. So I don't know where I was going with this one, but the landfill isn't a big issue actually, and so we got a handle on it, and I think that the ministry is satisfied with it. But now they got a new inspector, and this might come under scrutiny again. But we're following the conditions of the water taking permit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. You need your hand up.
In your report, Bruce, thank you very much for it. It's great. You're saying that you are going to recommend that the sampling be reduced to annually. So are you thinking now, because there's a new inspector, they might kind of say, no, let's not?
I don't know. It seemed they were receptive to that approach. For 2022, if we got good results, that they would reduce it to annually. I haven't received confirmation that they're in agreement with it, because unfortunately the inspector's gone. I don't see any advantage to going out there quarterly. We have low concentrations. We know we have the occasional detection. So I'm assuming that we can go back to quarterly, because that's what we talked about.
So you're waiting to hear back from them?
I would like to talk to the inspector. I don't know. Larry, have you talked to the new inspector by any chance?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We've reached out and we haven't heard anything back.
Oh, you have reached out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've reached out and I haven't heard back from them either.
They're changing their inspectors around, so we may end up with somebody new. Because we were told we were getting an inspector for Coburg, and now we have another one.
Okay.
The inspector has been allocated to another municipality. So they may be moving them around.
So I think what we're gonna do is just follow the conditions of the water taking permit for now, and unless we're advised otherwise.
Any other questions for Bruce on the annual report? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
we will now move on to Lucy. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Larry Sparika, Lucy Reed, Grafton Drinking Water System 2023 Operations Report, reporting period from January to February 2023 be received and filed, and further that the report be forwarded to the Council of the Township of Alnwick, Alton. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Keith, seconded by Britt. Go ahead, Larry, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice spring, cool day. Yeah, the report covers just January and February, so there hasn't been much changes. We all know during the winter months, the water, the amount of water that we push out the water plant does go lower, and then in the spring it'll increase. We completed our Schedule 23 and 24 annual samples. We do them every year on the raw water and on both wells. So they've been submitted. Talked about again the chlorine analyzer replaced in November. Talked about the well request proposal and the meeting that we had out there on February 26th. I mean, on February 22nd, I should say, there was the bid meeting. The second envelope was opening. I think Grant will talk to that one after. Distribution, not much going on there. Like winter months, nothing's happening. St. Mary's Cemetery Service. Adam has been talking to Tom Bain about that. They've been talking about it. Adam's not here today, and also Tom, I couldn't reach him today. He's away on vacation also. So we'll have some more updates on that one at the next committee meeting. Compliance, WQMS is moving ahead for the next audit in August. We did finish the summary report, which is at the end of this report, and that's for the committee as information only, because the summary report goes to the owners of the drinking water system, which would be the council to approve or to at least accept it and then review it. And the big thing coming this year, as well as the new well system, is our permit to take water is going to be, has to be renewed in September. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, what the ministry does in the interim until we get the new well, because once we get the new well, then the permit to take water, Bruce, will be changed again. So it's an ongoing battle with that one. So there again, then we don't know what the sampling program will be. So that's it for my my limited report for the 2 months. Any questions?
Hold on, Britt, just 1 second, if I can ask Larry. Larry, could you just explain to the new members that are here the issue with the St. Mary's Cemetery? There's a couple here that wouldn't know what you're talking about. Just a brief.
There's a water leak, and it's been there for a while at the cemetery, and it's in a low-lying area. It's a swampy area back there, and it was closer to the entrance of the road when they put in the service going into it. It's sort of undermining. There's I guess an gate entrance pillar, and it's sort of undermining that. The thought is that because the cemetery isn't charged for water and that there, and the cost to fix it is the real issue around it. Would it be easier for to disconnect it and not service water? And then Tom Bain said that they were going to fix it and then service water into the cemetery. So we're just waiting for this to get done. And it probably will not be done anytime soon. It'll probably wait till the spring. So because you got to tear up the whole road there in order to get to the water main, which is on the other side of the road.
Makes sense for all the new members, just so that you're up to date on it. in case-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Go ahead, Greg.
Actually, that's what my question was relating to, was the cemetery issue. I think also for the new members, it's important to note that the water is not a water service for any washroom facilities or anything like that. It's strictly for watering flowers or plants at the cemetery. So it's not like an essential service. So, but my question was, back when it was first presented to us, it sounded like this could be a dicey situation, particularly come the spring and whatever else, when there's a lot of melt going on. So is it not a serious issue, or is it a serious issue? Because it's obviously been going on for almost a
Well,
year.
I think like Adam's been dealing with it more than I have with Tom, and they actually did some work there. Adam, I wasn't on site when he was doing it. So in all fairness, it being wet, it doesn't, I guess if you do it now, it's still going to be wet, and there's going to be you're going to end up with a small hole, minimally a large hole. You're not going to end up with a small hole. It's going to be a large hole to fix it, no matter which way we go. Even if we were to abandon it across the road, you're still going to end up with a large hole because of the material that's in the ground. It's just going to keep falling in because it's like a muskeg wetlands down there, that whole area on that end of where Lyle Street and Aird meet. It is like a swamp area.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions for Larry on his report? Nobody? All in favor? Carry. Okay, we're moving right along. We now have a report from Pat Kemp. Read the results for request for proposal RFP 02-2022 Grafton well replacement. Be it resolved that the report from Pat Kemp, clerk, regarding the results for the request for proposal RFP 02-2022 Grafton well replacement be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Keith, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Go ahead, Pat, it's all yours.
I don't have my report in front of me, but I can tell you that we did receive 3 bids. Greer Galloway was the lowest bid. They are within budget. Thank you. So since then, council has passed a resolution to award the bid to Greer Galloway. I have contacted them. We will have them submit their information by the end of March. And then we will have a startup meeting probably the last week in March. So it is moving forward, and we can bring back more information to the committee after we meet with the contractor.
Okay, questions for Pat? Go ahead, Leo.
Were there any anticipated start and completion dates or times?
So originally the tender was due on the 23rd of January. It got bumped to February the 6th because of the Christmas holiday. So we are a couple weeks delayed, but the initial startup was not until the spring anyway. So we're probably going to meet the target. There is no anticipation that it will not be completed by the due date. So.
And could I just ask Pat, if you know off the top of your head, so when's it supposed to start, and when are we looking at a completion date?
I'll just see if I put that in the report. So it's not, just give me a second here.
He was going to finish in 2024, right? Was it?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
I think I have those dates here in front of me. I've got the last progress report that we sent into the province, and I know it has the dates on here. So forecasted start date was May 1st, 2023. Forecasted end date is June 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Nicole.
Any other questions for Pat regarding this?
So I have,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
So there was a project schedule that came out and grant listed in the RFP, which had all the dates. The grants on, do we know based on what I've just heard, whether those target dates have changed? Like where are we at with? Well, there was at least 10 target dates through the next number of months.
Go ahead, Pat.
So when we have our startup meeting, then we'll be able to sit down with the contractor and determine whether or not those dates are achievable or not.
Did you hear that question, Grant?
Yes, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah, I think we plan on meeting with Greer Galloway March 29th as sort of a placeholder date, if that works. And then they'll start their work.
Go ahead, Liam.
And are any of these dates going to jeopardize our funding for the project? Because sometimes funding comes with must be done by.
No, we took that into consideration when we set the dates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions regarding Pat's report? I'm not sure. We have Grant here. Does
He may have something to add.
Grant, do you want to add something since you're here waiting patiently?
Yes.
Listen to all our other business that wouldn't be fair to not let you speak. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I don't really have, I guess, a whole lot to add. Basically, our meeting with, I guess the award letter went out to Greer Galloway. And then we'll have like a project initiation meeting or kickoff meeting with them. And like Pat said, we'll one of their first tasks will be to nail down more specifically some milestone dates for the overall project. And then we'll, work with them. There's a number of steps they have to do with sort of the planning and siting of the well, drilling it, testing it, and so on. And then, assuming the well is a successful one, then there'll be the connection with a pipeline into the plant and doing the work inside the plant to integrate it into the treatment system. So yeah, once we meet with Greer Galloway, I think we'll have a pretty clear idea of specifically the overall steps and what their schedule is. And I think that hopefully they should be able to do a good job. They're a local consultant and well qualified for it. Bruce and I had checked their references and they had good references. And it's actually the same company that built the original plant. So that's good.
And I'll take your question, Nicole, in 1 second. Grant, one question was asked, I believe, at council. Where is Greer Galloway out of? Are they out of Peterborough?
I think they're based in either Belleville or Kingston. They have 2 or 3 offices in the area. One in Belleville, one in Kingston, and I'm not sure if they have another one in Peterborough, but they're like fairly local. Yeah.
Okay, Pat, go ahead.
Yes, they are from Peterborough, the one that did the bidding for this project.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Grant. Is there anybody has a John? You have a question?
So Grant, just wondering here, when I look at the schedule, the original project kickoff meeting was February 21st. And now I'm hearing, I think, March 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean we're a month behind the original targets? And does that have any impact on anything that you know of?
Oh, yeah, we will be, I guess, starting 1 month late. We tried to keep the milestone dates fairly generous. So I've got the original RFP here in front of me, and we indicated drilling and testing the well in the spring. And then essentially what we were looking at was them having their design done for the well and the pipeline into the plant by the end of this year. So I think that should still be okay. And then the next stage is they would have to do tendering for the construction contract to actually build it, which would be from spring to fall of next year, 2024. And we estimated that would take about 6 months. So that would sort of put the end date as far as physically having a new well drilled, equipped, connected into the plant and actually producing water by February of 2024. So I think even though we're starting off about a month late, I think that's still achievable, that date.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Grit.
I just had one quick question on the bidders because I wasn't able to attend the opening of the bidding envelopes. But there's an $800,000 difference from WSP and the other two that were bidding. What were they bidding on? Were they bidding on something different than what was actually supposed to be bid on?
Well, we did, yeah, when we were evaluating the bids, and that one was a bit of a surprise. Basically, we got three bids. One was Greer Galloway, one was from Crozier, and their bid and Greer Galloway's are very, very close. I think Greer's was around 270 something thousand, and Crozier's, they were second at 280 some thousand. And yeah, and then WSP was $1 million. So it's hard to really speculate what they were thinking. I know a number of us discussed it, and we weren't sure if they had somewhat interpreted that they had to include building it, but these are engineers, not contractors anyway. And typically our experience is if you have a number of bids, and if you have one that's low and they're all high, then maybe there is something wrong with the bid documents. But if it's the other way, if the two main bids are low and they're right where we expect them, and you have one that's an outlier, then it's probably them. So it's difficult to really speculate. The other thing that we required them all to submit was a table which indicated their staff and the number of hours they would spend on the project, which is sort of separate from the cost. I mean, they're very related, but they had to send us like a table or a matrix showing how many people and how many hours they would spend on the project. And yeah, in WSP's, their number of hours was in proportion to their cost. They had like 3 or 4 times the number of hours. It was like over 5,000 person hours compared to the others, which were under 2,000. So again, it's it's difficult to sort of see what they were doing. I'm not sure if maybe the only other factor, maybe the WSP is like a large corporate, like global firm, that they do have local offices, and they do good work. And like Greer Galloway is more of like a mid-sized local firm that's also qualified. So that wouldn't be enough to explain that much of a difference, though. So it just I think they just maybe, since they were the only one that was an outlier that far, that they may have just misinterpreted or overestimated what the scope was somehow. And they were there, they asked questions, they were at the site meeting, and yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Grant or Pat? Being none, all in favor?
Well,
Go
I think
ahead, Nicole.
Wanted to say something.
I just wanted to make a comment actually, and just to let everyone know that the actual funding for this project, the next progress report is due prior to the end of the month. So I have that coming up. So I will take into consideration all the comments as I prepare that. At this point, usually it's just questions like, do we feel the project is still going to be done in accordance with what we had already asked for. It'll ask what costs that we've incurred up to this point. So that would be my only other comment, is that although we just awarded the RFP, if there's been any consulting costs or anything with regards to this project that are pre-March 31st, if we can make sure that those invoices get into us in the next week, because I will need those in order to do that that reporting. So that would be my only comment.
And just to also, Nicole, you weren't at the last meeting. I think there was a discussion. The other members can maybe remind me some more. Is we were looking for your expertise, Nicole, is when we find out what portion of the well that the Grafton well users are on the hook for, was how we were going to pay for it. Were we going to put a lot of money down and have a small payment? Were we going to try and pay it all off? How long were we going to debenture it for? What was the best way of paying it off? So I don't know if you've had a chance for that, but that's going to come up in the future. Is hopefully there's different choices for us to look at to recommend to council of what you think is the best way to pay off. whatever that debt that's going to be owed?
It's in the report.
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, when I was preparing, I was preparing based on the original estimated costs. And my understanding is I think we've accepted the RFP that was quite a bit lower than what we had originally anticipated. So that being said, I don't know that we're even going to require a debenture with the cash flows that the municipality has. Now that the RFP has been awarded, I will go back and have a closer look and see based on when we expect the cost to be incurred. I mean, originally, based on the original estimates, and this is based on the ministry, so they have a March 31st year end. So we had initially had 2022 to 2023. So that would be everything last year up to March 31st of 2023 for 15% of the cost to be incurred. And then another 75% in the following year, and then 10% to be incurred in the 2024-2025 year. So that would be April of 2024 and onwards. So I truly just need to look at what the cash flows will be and get back to everyone with that. But I think based on the new estimates versus what we originally had, the other thing I will need to look into with the provincial and federal funding is that originally that was awarded based on the overall projected cost of the project. So I don't know whether that is going to impact the funding that we get from them. So I need to consult with them on that.
Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Just so that you're clear, Nicole, this is only part of the project, the RFP that we just issued.
It's just for the engineering.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that, Pat. So yeah, I'll still need a breakdown so that I can go forward.
And I guess maybe you could explain to me, and maybe the others too, is the municipality paying the whole bill and then we get the grants back from the provincial government and the federal government? And then what's left is that then coming out of the water budget, right? So when you say the municipality, so the town's paying the whole bill and then collecting afterwards, is that correct to say that?
That is correct. Both the provincial and the federal government will not be issuing funds, it's my understanding, till the project is complete. Now, whether I know that there's been times when if we actually put in the receipts based on their year end, they may issue based on that. So that's something I want to clarify with them, but my understanding is it's at the end. So as it stands on the $1.7 million, the feds were looking after 687,600. Province was looking after $572,943, with the remaining $458,457 to be covered by the municipality. So that's why I say cash flow is important and that needs to be considered. So if we can't cash flow it either through our reserves, then we would have to look at getting a debenture. But I really need to have a look at where we sit as the actual costs are coming in and the RFPs are approved. So.
Yeah, that was my question, is we're okay for the 1.8 million then, right? That if it's all due and paid for before we typically get any money back from the province or the feds.
Right.
And when you say the money, the 458,000, Nicole, you keep saying municipality, so it's not the municipality, it's going to be the Grafton water users, right?
Yeah, so sorry, that would come out of either our water reserves or development. And I think in my budget report, I did put some details in there because as far as development charges, we can only pull based on growth because this well isn't specifically due to development. However, we can look at the fact that over the next 10 years in our development charges study, it was estimated that we would have 4.75% growth. So we can take 4.75% of the cost of the project and fund that from development charges. And I think it was 80 some thousand or something. I have to look back at my report.
81,000.
Thanks, Chris.
So we'll move on to number 10, new business for future discussion. John, I think you had a question you were going to ask about the water training, I think that we've attended.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to understand that you've gone on the water training and
Yeah, what happened was
how'd that go?
council was supposed to take the water training. We were all going to go to Hamilton Township to do it. And that was the day of the big storm. So it was canceled because they had people coming from all over. They did offer it. I think it's next week you're going, right?
Next Friday.
Next Friday, they're all going. There was some of us that they're going next Friday in person, I believe. It was offered to anybody that couldn't make it next week, which I can't. So myself and Nicole and Troy Gilmore, the CAO, we took it online. So next week they'll have the training, and then I'm sure, Pat, the discussion will come up at council then of what the decision is going to be with the Grafton Water Committee then. So it's been sort of delayed. So I still think we're having the May meeting, no matter what they decide, right? Would we not, or?
That's up to council.
Oh, okay, so maybe I speak too. But I can only give you my feeling is I can say from the training that I took, I think this committee is of value, right? It's good for us to sit and talk about it and have the expertise that we have around here and the questions that we're asking so that me and the deputy mayor can take that back to the council and we can discuss it and answer those questions because somebody's got to do it. So go ahead, John.
My only comment on that is I still think where this is going, and I don't know where it's going to end up, is you still need to have these meetings with the contractors. And so it's a question of whether the residents will be part of it or not. This meeting still has to happen, does it not?
Yes. Yes, the meetings with Grant and it would be, the way I understood it, if it wasn't us, it would be the CAO and Pat and them would be meeting with Lucy, or somebody has to meet with Larry, somebody has to meet with Bruce, and especially Grant now with the process going on.
So the question to me sounded like is whether the residents will be part of the committee.
And that's a very valid point. That's why I said what I said is I think it's of value, but I can't speak for the other four, so. Go ahead, Joe.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I concur with what Councillor Booth said, because I think what you bring a big value to the committee, and that's the message that all the two of us will be taking back to council, to have the public input of the water users.
And I think you provide great advice to us, right? When we go in front of council with, there was questions about the St. Mary's Cemetery, or there'll be questions maybe possibly in the future, the new well and the build and stuff like that. We take serious what we decide here, and then we take it back, and myself and the deputy mayor will explain to them all. And I mean, there's even possibility of, but when we talk about, Liam, what you were talking about exemptions and all stuff like that, that can be discussed here, that has to come back to council too. Ultimately, what they did say, John, is no matter what, council's on the hook. I guess the one thing that I noticed too is when you're on the water committee, you're sort of on the hook too, right? Although we don't have as deep pockets as the town does or whatever, but that's who they usually go for. But, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's sort of like the Good Samaritan Act or whatever. We're doing it in the best interest and we're talking about it and everything, you know, so I think it's of great value, but like Deputy Mayor said, we'll have to wait until everybody else takes the course. Anything else to bring up under new business? Anybody have any questions? John?
This, I don't know if it's really new business, but it was a thought I just had after the discussion we just had about the new well project. And it's a question for Grant, and Grant, you know, we talked about the schedule, but my understanding is there should be an overall project budget. And that budget will be, you know, clearer as you get into certain pieces, certainly this first RFP and the others will be projected, and you know the overall number. But my understanding is you know, if that's 1.7, there will be a budget, will there not, even in your kickoff meeting on the 29th, was it, that will, if it's not from that, we'll say what you think the 1.7 is going to be for every stage going up for this project. Is that kind of correct, Grant, or not?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Part of the scope of work for the engineer for Greer Galloway, once they get at least sort of a preliminary design, is there to provide an overall project cost estimate, which, and the main part will be construction. And then they'll refine that as they get closer to the end. And we've actually made a budget estimate ourselves just last year, and I think it was used when we made the applications for the funding assistant. And we had estimated the project, like the total project cost last year of around $1.5 million. And that was based on sort of round numbers of approximately 300,000 for engineering and for the testing on the well. So like the engineering and studies portion. And then for the construction part, between 1 and 1.2 million. So the 1.2 million plus the 300,000, that's where we came with like a total overall project cost of 1.5 million. So with Greer Galloway, they'll be getting into the detailed design, and then they'll develop that number in stages, you know, a bit more rigorously as they go forward.
So one more follow up to that is, who works with Greer Galloway with that budget? When they put one together, and what if they come back and say, and I'm just theorizing here, it's going to be 1.9 million. Who looks at that? How's it managed? It's kind of my question.
Go ahead, Pat.
So our treasurer will manage the budget, all the invoices that come in. And in my past experience, we would list a spreadsheet that would show the provincial share, the federal share, and what the municipalities share, or in this case, the user's share would be. And if it were going to get close to being over budget, then staff would bring back a report to council and let them know right away. We would not let it go over budget and not let council know in advance.
Did you want to make a comment too, Grant? So I guess maybe what along John's line is, if we're going and you've piecemealed it out of what you're paying, and all of a sudden one of the RFPs comes back and it's huge. Who does that go to you, Grant? Are you looking at that with Bruce and the treasurer and that to say, wow, we're going to have a big issue here? Or
Yeah, there'll be probably 2 stages where we'll be getting at least 2 more RFPs or quotations. One will be for a driller to drill the well, and that'll be a fairly substantial number. And then assuming the well, they drill the well and it's successful and the water quality is good and the water quantity is good, then what the engineer Greer Galloway will do is they'll continue on with the rest of their design, which is basically the pump and the water line into the plant. And then we'll have a second tender for a general contractor. And that, like with our schedule, we were figuring that wouldn't be till probably the end of this year or early next year. So there's going to be 2 more sort of touch points in the overall project schedule. One will be this spring when we get quotations from a well contractor. That'll be a fair chunk of money. And then another one for the general contractor around the end of this year, or maybe by January of next year. So we'll know in stages like how the project is going in terms of the budget.
does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else to bring up under new business or future discussions? Anybody? Nobody? Great discussion today. Let's talk about the next meeting. So the next meeting is going to be on Wednesday, May 17th at 3 p.m. Is it going to be same thing, Yolanda, hybrid? You can either come in here or. And at 3 p.m., if everybody marks that down. And before we close for adjournment, I just wanted to take the time to thank Nicole. Thank you very much, Nicole, for attending today. We appreciate it that you came in, even though you're off. So that's make sure Troy gives you a special donut or something when you come back.
I'll remind them.
That'll remind him. You get the one with sprinkles on it. So can I have a motion to adjourn then?
Made.
Liam Craig and Britt,
Second.
all in favor? Passed. Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe out there, and we will see everybody in May 17th.
I hope my cold's gone by then, so I can be there.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, guys.
Thank you, Bruce.